Cheeky Run Club recognises that every day we live, work and run on Aboriginal land.
This episode is sponsored by Pillar Performance and their new creatine monohydrate powder.
Welcome to Cheeky Run Club, the social running podcast and community for your everyday amateur runner. Hello, Anna.
Hello, Phoebe.
And hello, listeners.
Today, we are so excited to say that we got to interview one of our absolute running and life idols, Jess Stenson. We literally just had such an interesting chat about everything from her running journey to how she stays strong when races get hard, through to the best running advice she's ever been given. We can't wait to share with you all so you can enjoy it too.
Yeah, I think that might be a cheeky life highlight for us.
Yeah, just life in general.
Yeah.
Just joking.
Just kidding. We literally, or I shouldn't say we, I feel like I really embarrass myself at the end because I'm like thanking Jess and I really get caught up in it all. And I end up being like, and we just think you're so amazing. She's really like,
she's like, calm down.
No, she was so nice.
So nice.
But first, as always, we're going to kick it off with our notable runs of the week. Anna, I want to hear about your best run this week.
Mine was on Saturday morning. This weather in Melbourne has been insane.
What's going on?
I know.
It's so
I think
good.
global warming.
Yeah.
Anyway, on Saturday, it was one of our friends, Richo. It was his birthday. And he organised such a wholesome birthday morning. He'd planned a run at 9 and then for everyone else, if they didn't want to go for a run, come for breakfast at 10.
Yeah.
And then go off to the footy for the afternoon. And
fun.
Dave and I had got to his house and it at 9 or like 9:01 and it was just him and his brother. And we were like, guess no one is going for a run. So we're like, oh, whatever. And then it's so different to so these are not running friends. These are just, I was going to say normal friends, but just like regular friends.
Yeah.
And then 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, 5 other people showed up for the run. And it's the stark difference between when you organise normally to go on a run with running friends.
Yeah.
You organise a time and you meet, you're there, everyone's there at that time.
Yeah, or you're getting hardcore judged.
Yeah, or everyone's already left kind of thing.
Yeah,
Whereas people were moseying in at 10 past, quarter
really?
past. And because it was just like, oh, well, we're just catching up at this time.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's
because like if you're getting breakfast, you would need to be there at 9:00.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's so strange. Anyway, we went for a run, which was so nice. We went along the Maribyrnong River, which shout out to anyone who lives in the west of Melbourne.
Okay.
It's so nice.
Is it?
Yeah, you should definitely, it would be really good for a long run.
Really?
Yeah, and then came back and then he'd already started cooking this huge shakshuka in this paella pan.
Yum.
Like cooked all the veggies and everything. And then everyone else
Gluten-free?
arrived. Yeah, and then everyone else arrived and he'd like chopped up all this fruit and like pre-made like all these like coffees. There would have been like 25 of us or something.
Wow.
All just having this breakfast picnic in his backyard.
Wow.
It was such a nice morning. We ended up being there. Everyone was late to the footy. We ended up being there until 1 p.m. or something.
Really?
But yeah, so nice and wholesome.
Oh, that is so nice.
What was your best run?
Well, I feel like mine's not going to sound as exciting compared to yours now because mine was also Saturday morning and I was going to say mine was like dream run. Like, but then you said a lot of those things. I was like, oh, that actually sounds pretty good. But as in if I could plan my dream run on a weekend, it would involve not having to get up at the crack of dawn, being able to have time to eat some fruit and have a cup of tea, set out and then have beautiful weather, run by a body of water of some sort, finish with a swim and some good breakfast. Yeah. And so we were away.
All of those boxes.
Yeah, we were away for Sean's birthday, for my boyfriend's birthday.
Happy birthday, Sean.
Down the peninsula. Happy birthday, Sean. And it just had such a nice run, actually. It's just this perfect weather that we've been having, which is still sunny, not too cold, but cold enough that running feels quite easy, nice, relatively. Yeah. And then the swim afterwards, I was just like, this is just the nicest. There's no nicer feeling, I'm convinced. Yeah. Went to a cafe, ordered my favorite drink combo of, actually I had tea, I had hot lemon water and I had a smoothie.
Oh my gosh.
Which some may say is too much, others might say is just the right amount.
I love that you got 3.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself because I was quite thirsty and so I wanted a smoothie to refresh me. Yeah. But I also knew that it was cold and that I would get cold.
You'd just been
so I wanted some hot drinks as well.
Yeah.
Tell me about your worst running related activity.
Mine, I was just saying to you off air, it's hard when you don't run heaps to have a worst run sometimes because every run is great. But my worst running related experience is a shout out to cafes in general.
Okay. Not sure what this is called.
As you know, I've been trying to sort of relax on the caffeine as of late. So I've been having quite a lot of decaf coffees, which sometimes they're nice and you can barely taste the difference. Other times they are honestly so bad. I'm not a coffee snob in any way.
Yeah.
Like I love International Roast.
Yeah.
Blend 43, whatever's Instant coffee. Yeah. Some cafes decaf is honestly so bad. Like so bitter and just even so much worse than decaf instant coffee. And I don't know what they're doing or why it is. But I feel like cafes should be accommodating to people who like the taste of coffee that don't want the caffeine. And I genuinely reckon they would just get it in and not try it for themselves because they're like, oh, well, I don't drink decaf.
So it doesn't matter.
But I reckon if you're a cafe owner or something, I reckon try your decaf and see if it actually tastes okay.
See, are you proud of what you're putting in the world?
Would you want to be serving this?
Not to name and shame, but are there some cafes that do it really well?
Yes. Tall Timber in Paran is really, really good for their decaf coffee. I'll give them a shout out.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Everywhere
else is bad. Oh, that's such a shame.
Yeah. Anyway, anyone in Melbourne, if you have had decaf coffee and it's been good, let me know where because I will go. Yeah.
Okay. No.
What is your worst run or running related activity this week?
Okay, this one might not be allowed, so you tell me. I'm preempting.
Okay.
This is such a bad attitude, especially because we've just interviewed Jess, who has the best attitude ever. But I'm preempting that I'm going to have a bad race this weekend.
Oh my God.
Because, oh my gosh, I did a little session on Monday.
Yeah.
And the session was 2K tempo and then 10 by 300 with a 100 meter jog. And in the tempo, I honestly could not run anywhere near the pace that in my head I thought I might be running this weekend.
Yeah.
This just is way too hard. And I was like, why am I? And I know last week I was like, it's not always about getting a PB, but I'm like, why am I doing this race? I feel so unfit. I feel like I'm just going to be running around a track for however many laps it is, resenting. I really need a reframe.
You need to, I mean, tempo also shouldn't be your race pace. Like you should be it shouldn't be that anyway.
No, but that was the point. It felt so hard.
It felt so hard. Right.
Yeah, I was doing a pace that felt really, really hard, even though it was actually still slower than race pace.
I mean, you had it's 2 days after your long run. It's a day sooner than you normally do your sessions and you're by yourself. And sometimes you just don't feel good. Sometimes you just have days and you don't feel good. Yeah. Saturday's a new day. It's 5 days later.
Yeah.
You'll be right.
I'll be right. Jess had some good embrace the challenge.
Embrace the challenge.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Spoiler for everyone.
Yeah, I know.
That maybe, hopefully, that won't. My goal is that won't be my worst run next week.
Yeah. I like that. Nice. All right. So today's interview, as we spoke about in the intro, is probably one of our favorite chats since starting Cheeky. We have the privilege and pleasure of interviewing none other than Jess Stenson. This intro was actually kind of hard to write because she brings so much to the running community across multiple generations other than just her sporting accolades. She's so present in the running communities and at fun runs in Adelaide and across the rest of Australia. She lets her audience in on her training and racing experience through her blog and social media, as well as her generosity with her time and all of the interviews she does, including today's.
Yeah, that's such a good example of it. Is we literally sent a message to her on Instagram being like, she'll probably never see this or respond, and then she responded straight away being like, yeah, of course, I'm happy to jump on. Yeah, Jess is a lot of things. I mean, it goes without saying, she's one of Australia's best ever distance runners. She's run professionally for over 10 years. She's a triple Commonwealth Games medalist. She's been to 3 Olympics, including she finished 12th in Paris last year. She's a mother to Billy and Ellie, physiotherapist, rider, coach, and all-around legend. Really, she's just an incredible human being who is so generous with her time, and we hope you love this conversation as much as we did.
Here is Jess.
Hello, Jess, and welcome to the Cheeky Podcast.
Hello, how are Hi, Anna and Phoebe.
So we like to start at the very beginning. Tell us about your earliest memories of running.
My earliest memories are at primary school in Narracourt, which is in the southeast of South Australia. We had an annual cross-country event there. School actually had a pine forest sort of bordering it, and it was very soft dirt, so cross-country was tough. It was, for little kids, I don't know, it was probably only 800 metres or so, but it was hard work. So my early running memories are of getting very nervous and not really wanting to do it. But then once the gun fired and I was out there, I loved that sort of rush of adrenaline and pushing myself and crossing the finish line, which was always between a couple of footy goalposts. And Dad always had the old school video camera out, and so we still sometimes go back and watch the videos. They're very entertaining.
I feel like it came up. I watched a video. This is so weird.
Yeah,
on
I
Instagram.
have shared one before.
Yeah, okay, that makes me feel better. Of you, I think it's you and your sister at the Sydney 2000 Olympics or something.
Yeah. So that would have been, I think I shared a video from when I was in about year 3. Mum used to sell kids' clothes, and I was always wearing some like bright outfit, like I think bright green shorts and little like red and white striped tops and things like that. Very different to the athletic wear these days.
Were you really good at running even as a small child doing cross country?
I did win my races when I was in reception, or right through primary school and high school as well. So I guess I was able to find a rhythm and just, I don't know, I had an endurance there that I was born with, but the sprint races I'd get flogged. So I was very much a long distance runner from the get-go.
And then what was your relationship with running like in early adulthood?
Well, growing up in the country, netball and football, even basketball, tennis, there were so many team sports and great opportunities. We had a lot of really passionate coaches, and a lot of the kids, and particularly in my friendship groups, just lived and breathed sport. So my relationship with sport was really good from a young age, watching Mum and Dad play, and we'd spend the whole weekend at whichever venue, say the football and netball was at for the weekend. So we'd travel up to an hour and a half to get to that location, and as kids we'd like run around, watch our parents play, and then we always knew, the particular playground that say Keith or Penola had the good lolly shop, and it was just so much fun as kids growing up, being surrounded by sport. Running, Mum and Dad didn't run. I think that Dad had sort of average knees, and they probably just didn't have the opportunities to run like we did. So I didn't grow up around parents who were going off to fun runs or going for a run in the morning. And my relationship with it early on was a bit strange because I found it really nerve-wracking. So the stress that I'd feel in the lead up to events through primary school, high school, almost meant that I'd pull out the day beforehand. But then, as I said, once I got out there, I actually loved the feeling it gave me. Obviously it hurt. I always pushed myself really hard, but when I crossed the finish line, I was just on cloud 9, and then opportunities started to open up to travel interstate for cross country and athletics. And then by year 10, I had the opportunity to travel to France. So I think it was knowing where running could take me, that sort of motivation kept me in it, even though I felt a lot of nerves. And it wasn't until I was 21 and started specifically training for running that my nerves started to calm down, because I could line up feeling really well prepared and just sort of trusted that I could get through it.
Yeah. What was it? I mean, it surprises me to hear that you used to be so nervous, because you come across now so calm and stoic and so much respectful. Like, what was it that helped you move past those nerves? Was it just feeling like you were more prepared?
Yeah, I think so. I think back to my first marathon, and that was probably the calmest I'd been in my whole running history, because my coach, Adam, he'd never actually coached anyone to a marathon. He was all pretty new, but he was reaching out to the likes of Chris Wardlaw, Sean Crichton, Steve Monaghetti to get advice. And so I knew that my program had the input of a lot of the greats, and I'd loved the training, and I had nothing to compare to. It was just, this is an opportunity. There's nothing to lose. So even though there are so many unknowns in a marathon, my first one in Nagoya in 2012, I was just so excited. And then when I was out there, I was like, okay, I've found my thing. Like, this is where I need to be. So it wasn't until I found marathon running that I just felt at home.
So it was in that first marathon that you mid-race decided that this is what you want to do?
Yeah, and probably by K35, I was like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think I'll ever do this again. But because that opened the doors to run in the London Olympics, that just completely changed the trajectory of my career. Until then, I'd been working, I think, full-time as a physio and didn't really see running as a realistic career prospect. It was just something that I'd do on the side. Yeah, so it was the marathon event that actually made me really believe in where I could go with running.
Oh, wow. So since you made that transition into becoming a professional runner, how has that relationship with running changed for you, if at all?
So in 2012, it all happened really quickly. That Nagoya Marathon in March, getting that first ever call up to say you've made an Australian team, and headed off to a training camp, or like a holding camp in Tonbridge. I think it was a couple of weeks before the actual Olympics, and I really loved the team environment and just soaked it all up. And then competed. I didn't really know what to expect. I ran a pretty similar time to my time in Nagoya, but it was on a tougher course. So I came away feeling pretty satisfied. And then when I got home, I think because it had all happened so quickly and the Olympics had been this childhood dream of mine, I remember feeling pretty just flat for quite a long time, not really wanting to get up and going for the day. It was, I don't know how long that period lasted for. I'm thinking a few weeks. I didn't have any goals beyond London. I was probably exhausted. But I think back on that time as a really tough one, because in my head I thought, oh, if I want to go to another Olympics, that's 4 years away. And I just battling a little bit to work out what I wanted, because I had this physio career as well. And I think qualifying for the Olympics opened up doors at the South Australian Sports Institute, and I had access to a sports psychologist, and I was able to sit down and consolidate the whole experience, set some new goals, and moved on from that. But I think it wasn't until probably 2014 and 2015 that I started to really work out the mental side of running. Had up and down patches there. I remember in 2010 and 2011 even thinking I needed to change my physique to be a better runner. I'd seen some people around me, like cutting back on their intake on a half marathon trip I went on. And so I remember probably under fueling for some of those years, and that really took the enjoyment out of running for me. And it took quite a while to just trust that the training was the priority and recovery. And once I got the physical side right, my mental side improved as well, and I started to really enjoy running more than ever. But certainly I think back to some of the early years, and there were some tough times.
Yeah. So since getting over those early years, because it's your job, have you found it hard to maintain the love of running?
Yeah, I feel like the 2014 Commonwealth Games was a bit of a breakthrough year, and winning a medal there, I came back just with so much excitement and motivation. And then in 2015 I moved to Melbourne for the year, and my goal was to qualify for the Rio Olympics, and I was doing the Melbourne Marathon later in the year. So I really enjoyed that opportunity, training with different squads and experiencing some new running routes. I loved going up to Fernie on a Sunday. It was tough, but it was
so
good.
hard.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that year of running. And then by the end of 2016, I'd had an injury that year. It was starting to get a bit tougher, but 2017 ended up being a really special year as well. I did the London Marathon early in the year, and then went to the World Champs mid-year, and prior to that did my first ever St. Moritz training camp. And it's Oh, one of my favourite places in the world, St. Moritz. I really enjoyed that whole experience, and fortunately I've been able to head back there a few times since. I just love it. And the hardest thing is holding you back from running more, because there are so many different runs to explore, and it's just a really clean, picturesque part of the world. So yeah, 2017, 2018, the Commonwealth Games were on home soil. And by the end of that year, because I went on to do the Gold Coast Marathon in July and then the Toronto Marathon at the end of the year, I was absolutely exhausted. Like I need a decent break from running here, I think physically and mentally. So I think I'd just gradually been draining my energy stores, and then that was draining my motivation. So my relationship with running started to drop off again throughout that year. In 2019, I fell pregnant with Billy. Yeah. And that year, 9 months of minimal running really just made me hungry for it again. I came back after giving birth with a completely new perspective on life and the role that running was playing in my life. I think training had been becoming a grind, and as I said, I was feeling pretty empty, but with this new energy and just desire to get back out and have a bit of time where I could just think to myself or hang out with my training partners and chat. I feel like since becoming a mum, I've had a really big shift in perspective in a positive way, and it's had a favourable impact on my running.
Just to circle back to something you said before that I think would be really interesting to even amateur runners. I mean, you were talking about how you're looking at the different behaviours of the people running around you and their attitudes towards food and training and so on, and you had to sort of learn to not listen to some of that. How did you learn to focus more on yourself and what you found useful, and kind of dial down the noise about, other people, their attitudes towards food or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, I think it was just through experiencing it. You can have really good mentors around you and people telling you things that are logical, but it wasn't until I experienced the energy crash and the poor performances that I learnt, fueling is a priority, and just being stronger and healthier is the way to go. So I think, again, pregnancy and becoming a mum really improved that for me too, because when you're growing a baby, you're obviously thinking, what do I need to get in to support this baby? And it's not about you anymore. And again, through breastfeeding, I had such a high appetite, and I'm prioritizing my baby, but also thinking I need to stay healthy and strong to be, able to do what I need to do as a mum. So I've never really thought twice about what I'm eating or my physique since becoming a mum. So that's Billy's 5 now, so it's just been so refreshing. Never jumping on scales or any of that. I wouldn't have a clue what I weigh these days, and it's just such a weight off the shoulders.
Yeah, I don't know that
why.
Must be quite freeing.
Yeah, I don't know why I felt that way in my younger running years, because certainly my coach has never been one to say you need to look a particular way to be a good runner. I think it was just a few things I'd heard, when commentators are talking about you during a race, and just passing comments that people make just made me think I needed to look a particular way to excel as a marathon runner. But
yeah, do you think there's been a bit of a cultural shift around that over the past few years anyway? Yeah.
So I'm talking 15 years ago now, and I do think a lot of education has improved in that. I think people who support athletes, their coaches and healthcare professionals, just really pushing for the healthier the better, and it's about getting as much quality fuel into you as you can, and it's whatever you need to do to get the most out of your sessions. It's not about trying to create some sort of physique that's not right for you.
The last few weeks we've been talking about Pillar Performance's creatine supplement, which you have been taking for a few months now.
Yes, I have already spoken about how I think it's been really helping my recovery and my strength. But this week, I actually learned something new about creatine, which I didn't know before, even though we did a whole episode on creatine, about how it helps your gut. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, well, I was listening to a pod with Stacey Sims, who some listeners might have heard of before. She's an absolute world leading expert in women's performance and health. But basically, she was on this podcast and she was kind of proselytizing that all women should be using creatine. And she was talking about how good it is for your gut, which I didn't know, which is great. And then she started specifically talking about running, and my ears really pricked up. So something she said, which I didn't know, is that women are way more susceptible to gastrointestinal issues when we run, particularly at certain times in our cycle. So overall, she said it's a 5-to-1 ratio of women to men who have GI issues when we run, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And she said a lot of GI issues when we run come down to the integrity of our mucosal lining in our gut. And it turns out that creatine, one of its main functions is that it actually helps restore and regenerate and maintain this mucosal lining.
Yeah.
So she was talking about these studies they have where they can see that creatine improves gastrointestinal distress for runners. So I feel like, I mean, if you're not already taking creatine,
then here's the nod to take it. Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you so much to Pillar Performance for sponsoring this week's episode and supplying us with the creatine goods. Pillar have given us a discount code to use on your first order. Please use the code CHEEKY at checkout. So getting on to your professional life as a runner, and I know that Olympic marathons are generally speaking the pinnacle of the sport. Obviously, it's a long way to go until LA. What's exciting you at the moment, or what's making you get up in the morning?
Probably not so much long-term goals, but my shorter term goals. So after Tokyo in Feb, I came away, or was it early March? I can't even remember now, maybe late Feb, around that time. It was obviously, every marathon's tough, and for a little while there you're like, oof, don't need to do one of those for a little while now. But then as time goes on, you get excited about the next opportunity, and I felt like there was still room or still areas for development and growth, which motivates me. I really just want to get the most out of myself and hopefully be able to look back one day and think I got it all right on that one day when the course and conditions were all favourable, and feel like I got that result that's reflective of, you know, my best results. So that's probably what's motivating me at the moment, just to try and see what time is possible. I obviously love representing Australia as well, and that's been a focus of mine for most of my career, is prioritising those championship events. But I'm pretty excited to try and target some fast marathons over the next little while, and get my half marathon time down as well, so that marathon pace doesn't feel quite as hard.
Yeah. I mean, you've had and continue to have such an illustrious career. I'm interested, looking back, can you pinpoint any breakthrough moments for you? And then in retrospect, what do you think it was that helped maybe set you up for that breakout?
Well, I think the 2014 Commonwealth Games was a breakout because I'd had an injury in the lead up, and my preparation was so different. I was doing boxing, elliptical, rowing ergos, a lot of cross training. It was a second metatarsal bone stress injury. And certainly I got back to running via anti-gravity treadmill, and then real running or land running, and then headed over to Glasgow. And I still remember a little training run the day before the race with my coach. I was doing some drills and strides. I'm like, I think I can still feel it. I was quite nervous. And then when I got out there, I felt good and just kept feeling better. And then when I sort of ran a PB and won the bronze medal, I just realized that day showed me that there are so many different ways to prepare for a marathon. Until then, I'd been quite rigid in my preparations and what I thought I had to do. So that definitely opened me up to a new way of preparing for marathons and got me excited about the future. And then probably the 2017 World Championships was another breakthrough, just finishing in the top 10 there. I'd sort of felt like I'd been able to really put myself in the race. It was the first time I wasn't going into it just thinking I'm going to run my own race, and I actually put myself in the front pack and tried to hold on. And then the 22 Commonwealth Games was definitely a moment that it just felt like everything came together on the day, and crossing the line was a feeling that it's really hard to describe, but I was so happy.
Yeah, the footage from that race is so cool.
Yeah, it's so good. On that note, can you tell us, out of all of those things, what's been your personal career highlight? What are you most proud of?
I think, as I said, that 22 Commonwealth Games experience I was really proud crossing the line there, and I got to celebrate with my husband Dylan and Billy, and my mother-in-law was there, and friends, my coach. My dad had been having some treatment, so mum and dad were home, and I saw them on the TV in an interview afterwards and just got really emotional. So I was proud of that result, but the Paris Olympics, my whole family was there, my mum and dad, my brother and sister, and so that was a career highlight for me, crossing the line after what had been a pretty chaotic build-up, and just seeing them all there. It was like, oh, all right, we got there, we did it, let's celebrate.
Yeah, I was riding alongside you crazily on a one of those electric bikes, FaceTiming my whole family. I was like, it's Jess. It was so fun. But what were just with the lead up to Paris and the drama around selection and everything, what were your feelings when you first crossed the line?
I wasn't thinking about the selection drama in the race. It's weird. Somehow I'd been able to put that in a box and put it somewhere
File
else.
it away.
And even now it's so hazy, the details. It's almost like, when you go through some experiences, your brain kind of forgets it. That's what happened. It's all a bit of a blur, but I remember, it was very tough at the time. When I was racing, I just remember being so happy to be out there and really feeling like I just found that zone. I was just in the moment. I loved the atmosphere. There were so many technicalities to think about on the course that you really had to just take each 5 kilometre segment at a time. And then coming into that home straight, there was so much noise, and it was pretty spectacular, that finishing sort of arch. And so just running as hard as I could under that. And again, not really knowing what to think of the result, but just wondering where the other girls were. So turning around and just sharing that experience with them. And then it wasn't until I was having an interview with Jen that my family started yelling out in the distance.
Oh, that's so nice.
So I wouldn't say it was relief. I would say it was more just I was so in the moment. I was just taking each thing as it came. It wasn't until months later that I really started to reflect on it.
Yeah. What were you feeling, or what was going through your head during that race? I can't remember if maybe it was 22 or 25 Ks in, and you and Jen were leading the pack sort of up one of the hills. Were you thinking anything at that moment?
I remember feeling pretty daunted when there was the moment where I could have been in the lead up that first hill. I'd been in St. Moritz, and the hills I felt like that was my strength, the up hills. And I had said to my husband at one point, imagine if I was really strong on the uphill in Paris and I found myself up there with the lead, what would I do? Imagine. And then we never really talked about it further. And so when it happened in the race, I was like, do I just drop back and tuck in and hide? Or do I keep my rhythm? And I, in that split-second moment, was like, no, keep your rhythm. Knowing that these girls would be strong at the end, I was like, I just have to run my own race here. But I expected them to sort of come with me, and I didn't want to look back. I just panicked a little bit, but had to just take myself to another place. And then I think we had a flatter section, they passed me, and then again at sort of halfway it happened and Jen came up beside me. And I felt so comforted having her there, and we'd actually talked on the train from Montpellier up to Paris about, if we saw each other out there, we wanted to work together, and so we had that plan that we were going to try and work as a team, and then it just all played out as you dream it might, and it was really cool to share that together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely
what a
reckon that was
special
like one of the
moment.
best moments of the Olympics.
It was so good. We were
So cool.
we had a cheeky watch party back in Melbourne as well. There would have been 150 people in the room, and I just remember everyone screaming. Like, I mean, your whole race was incredible.
Yeah.
You said something in there about when it got hard and you sort of had to go to another place, and I'm interested to unpack more about the races that don't go so well. Could you maybe tell us about a race that really didn't go to plan and how you handled that?
There are two that come to mind. So one was at the beginning of 2014. I did Nagoya again, and I'd had gastro before, or food poisoning, I think it was. I remember the Monday before the race, and just was really crook, and I couldn't really start eating again until I was on the plane and was carb loading. And I remember being able to get quite a few carbs in, but 25 Ks into the race, I was so empty. And I got to the finish line, it was fine, but a couple of weeks later I got a bone stress injury, and that just taught me how important nutrition is and that stress on your body, and it just it doesn't end well. And then in 2018, the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast, I went into that thinking I'd had my best preparation ever, but then I don't know what it was. My fueling wasn't great on the day. I hadn't been sleeping that well in the lead up to the race, and looking back now, knowing what I know, I think I'd probably overcooked it a bit, my prep, and maybe hadn't quite nailed the taper given it was hot and humid. And for the final 7 Ks there, they were the hardest 7 Ks I've ever raced. I felt so empty and had to get to the finish line because there were so many people out there supporting me, and I felt so unwell for a while after that race. But it taught me how deep I can dig if I have to. I just left that race thinking, okay, when you think you're going to stop and your body's going to shut down, you can keep going sometimes. Obviously there are times when you can't, but it just taught me my limits a little bit more, at least mentally.
Are there any tactics or things you try to go through when, obviously in any marathon, the inevitable is that at some point it's going to hurt? Do you do anything to get through those times?
So before the race, I'll usually try to work out where I think it's going to be tough, whether it's sort of 25 and the 35. They're typically sort of harder points. 25 more mental because you've still got a long way to go, but the fatigue might be starting to trickle in. Or if there's a particular hill or just a boring section, and I'll think of some strategies before the race that I might use when I get to those points. Or if I've got people supporting me, I might be like, can you go there and there, please? But when I'm in the moment, sometimes those strategies don't work for me. I like to have things that I can immediately go to, and if that's not doing it for me, I have to do something else. And it might be as simple as if there's someone in front of me just concentrating on their feet hitting the ground, or it might be just picking objects ahead and going, I've just got to get there. It might be counting or singing a song in my head. I really like to visualize as well. So in most races at some point, so for example, that hill at the Olympics, when I was feeling a bit daunted, I did think back to Naracoorte cross country, and I was thinking of that video, the little kids taking off up the hill and how like free I felt when we got to this section of the cross country course. So I don't know if that would work for everyone, but I certainly like to picture parts of my prep or other races. It's amazing. It doesn't matter how many marathons you've done. I can clearly remember parts of each marathon, and so I sometimes go to like the 25k mark of, let's say, Toronto, and think, how was I feeling there? How does that compare?
Do you ever have something we've spoken about a little bit is negative self-talk? Do you ever have negative self-talk, or it sounds like it's also positive?
Yeah, there is. Probably it's more, oh my gosh, what if I pulled out here? And I get a bit scared. It's not I'm going to, it's like, what if I needed to? And then I have to quickly snap out of that, because if I start getting anxious, your breathing can get restricted. And so it's not generally like talking myself down, it's just panicking about what if something were to happen, and you have to quickly distract yourself with something more positive.
Yeah. Going back to the school cross country.
Yeah.
You sort of talk about, like getting through those tough times. How do you, in training more so, listen to your body and know how to not push yourself too hard, or are there any specific signs that you pay attention to?
It's funny, prior to becoming a mum, we used to do the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday session model.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was the only way, really. And so you're backing up quite quickly, session after session, and speed work was always something that I found really hard, and Adam would put something on my specific paces on my program, and I just think, there's no way I'm going to hit those. But since COVID, we switched to the Tuesday, Friday session model, and I feel like that works so much better for me, and my sessions are longer and they play more to my strengths. And I just feel like I've learnt to listen to my body a lot more since going through pregnancy and that postpartum period, because there's no recipe you can follow. Everyone's experience is so different there. You have to be adaptable and flexible, and you also don't have as much time to think about whether a session went well or not. You just move on to the next thing. Your mind's busy with logistics, and when I do get out to run, it's like, okay, I'm out the door. Like, let's enjoy this. Let's make the most of it. Adam will give me paces, and I'm like, okay, bring it on. It's just a completely different approach, and I don't know whether it's partly because of the footwear these days as well. You feel bouncier and faster in them, and maybe it's because I am fueling better. I love the people I'm training with, and as I said, I see it as a privilege to be able to get out and run as opposed to a grind, which it was becoming back in 2018. I didn't appreciate how cool it is to be able to just get out and run.
Yeah, that sounds like all the ingredients for some great runs. Good people, good shoes.
Yeah,
good mindset.
Good, like Adelaide scenes. We're in autumn at the moment, so it's getting a bit cooler, but it's just so pretty out there. All the leaves on the streets. I love it.
It is so nice. So, I mean, that's amazing that you've been able to learn to listen to your body a little bit more through that process. What does good recovery look like for you now, considering you're a mum, professional runner, you have so much on your plate? How do you prioritize that, and what does it look like?
Yeah, so for me, I think 3 really important recovery strategies: sleep, which isn't so easy to control as a parent, nutrition, and mobility work. So of all the recovery strategies, they're the 3 that I really emphasize, because you can't always put your feet up, and I've never been one to rest during the day, but night sleep, we go to bed pretty early, because we might be up for 1 to 2 hours in the night with Ellie. She's her sleeping's still questionable at the moment, but at least getting to bed early, it means that if you're up for an hour or 2, you're still getting enough total sleep. And just creating a good sleep environment, really dark room, not looking at your phone just before you go to bed, not having caffeine in the second half of the day, really trying to set myself up for good sleep. And then nutrition, I'm just really addressing the protein post-session and carbs, and then carbs pre-session, really doing everything I can do there to help kickstart that tissue replenishment healing process. And then mobility work, I didn't discover Alice Bequee Pilates or the Forerunner app until I was pregnant with Ellie. So actually during COVID we did a bit, but I really started creating a routine of it in 2023, and it has been so good for my running, having go-to mobility exercises I can do, and just that regular Pilates, and it can be so flexible. I can join, Jen and Sinead and people online for a class, or if I'm not available, I can jump on and do an on-demand session. And I can't always get to the gym, but having the 1 to 2 Pilates sessions a week and those mobility exercises, I think it doesn't sound like recovery as such, but I think it's just built such a stronger base for me, which has made a big difference.
Yes, mobility as well as the Pilates, they're so good. Even just the 10-minute ones, I feel like you feel like a different person after. Like you feel like you can actually move.
And I love it pre-race now. You travel, you're feeling a bit stiff, and they're just my favourite go-to exercises. And I try to get a massage every fortnight as well, but now if I can't get a massage, I just feel empowered because I've got these tools as well to help me feel freer.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things we wanted to chat about is, and really keen to get your perspective on, the shift that you've seen in running over the years. What do you think has driven the real change and growth of amateur running culture over the last couple of years?
I do think when team sports weren't available for a period there, some people just dabbled with running and got the bug. So that 2020, 2021 period, I think, helped to kickstart it. Now I think it's, when something becomes popular, it almost just snowballs. So many people are talking about it, and there are the apps. There's really cool gear now, like the running apparel, like activewear is such high quality and really nice. I think people are time poor more than ever at the moment with, the economic climate we're in, and just the cost of everything is high, and so people are working hard, they're juggling a lot, and running, you can head out the door and get so much bang for your buck in 20-30 minutes. It's hard to know how much is me and the phase of life I'm in right now and the people I'm around versus what's actually a broader change. But I think these fun runs that are selling out, there's that FOMO feeling. People are panicking. They're like, I need to get in. And that just, has the effect of making it even more popular, I think. And people are learning how to put on really good events and really capturing what people want. So there are so many factors, but I love it. I'm so happy that I'm a part of this era where people are loving running, because certainly when I got into it, it was quite different.
Yeah. It must even be like amazing in Adelaide. I mean, we had Izzy Hume on the pod a few weeks ago, but in the Runners One group in Adelaide, all of a sudden I can imagine that park probably going from just a few runners like every now and then to all of a sudden there's hundreds of people there.
Yeah, and that's so cool. I was running with Jacob Cox and Fraser Darcy, who were both with Runners One this morning, and we were just talking about that, how cool that Runners One started something that has helped to fuel the boom, but also just being there when there's this high appetite for it. And Vic Park's beautiful, and you see sort of the sunrise and all these people out running. It's awesome. And then I've even got friends I went to school with who have never had an interest in running. One of the girls, Emma, who listens to your podcast, Ashley, shout out to Emma.
Hey, Emma.
She's just signed up for a 6K at Great Ocean Road and has literally just started running. And
amazing.
I love it. She's asking me questions about various things and what top to wear in the winter. I just love it.
There's something, I feel like we've both spoken about, there's something so nice about seeing friends or people that have never run before, then getting into it, and you can
fall in love with it.
And you can kind of firsthand seeing them fall in love with running and kind of realizing all of the reasons why you've always loved to run.
And you're talking my language. And then start getting screenshots of Garmin uploads and it's great.
We've got a couple more quick fire questions to finish off.
I'm not always good at quick fire answers. I'll do my best to keep it.
That's all right.
We'll set a timer.
Neither are we.
That's true. What is your favourite core running memory?
Yeah, that's hard. To be honest, it would have been one of my runs in St. Moritz. That you just feel so alive, and the lakes are crystal clear, and you get the reflection of the snow-capped mountains. I think probably one of my runs with Elsie Wellings and Susan Crummins back in 2017 when I was seeing it for the first time. I just remember being on such a high. So runs in St. Moritz.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds like we might need a business trip to St. Moritz.
Do it.
If you could pick 3 people to go on a run with, who would they be? Where would you run, and why?
This is a bit of an unusual answer, but I'm going like futuristic. If I could run with Dylan, Billy and Ellie, that would be really cool. Like a whole family run. It won't be for a while, but the thought of running with my kids, that excites me.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
Tell us some running advice that's really stuck with you.
Yeah, a couple that just jumped to mind straight away. So Chris Wardlaw, who coached Steve Moneghetti, and he's one of the greats. He was my team manager in 2011 for a world cross country champs. And I just remember we had this little thing we'd say to each other. It was just embrace a challenge, and it's always stuck with me. It's just, it's going to be challenged. Bring it on, embrace it. And I just love those three little words together. But if I think back to my first ever national cross in the year 2000, so I was 12, 13 or something, my team coach Grenville Wood, I remember we were walking the course the day beforehand and I was so nervous, and it was at Yarra Bend and there were some ups and downs and we were at the top of this hill, and he's like, you just have to let go down the hill. He's like, so many runners hold back, but just let your body flow and belt down that hill. And I remember in the race just thinking that the whole time, and for my whole career, whenever I am running downhill, I think of saying just let go. And it is something you see people sort of lean backwards and put all this stress through their quads, kind of holding back down the hill. And certainly if you let go, you feel a lot of impact, but if you can try and absorb that shock still, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, one last question. So firstly, just wanted to say thank you for writing the most amazing pieces on your blogs and continuing to do so, because it's so cool to get insight into what it's like training as a professional runner and also your experiences at races, being a mum and that kind of thing. But I just want to ask, why did you start and why do you do it today?
It's a good question. I don't even know. I think before the 2014 Glasgow Games, Matt Axford, someone in my running squad, he's really good with that digital design, and I think he created it for me, and we were running competitions. So there was a competition at the Glasgow Games. I think it was about the difference between the male and the female winning times or something. You won a pair of shoes, and so it sort of started as a way just to engage a little bit more. And then I think I'd always been doing some writing in the background, and I probably uploaded a few pieces that I'd written. And then it became part of, I'd run a marathon, I'd have all of these thoughts about it, and I loved just writing them down when they were still pretty raw and reflecting on that marathon. And then I was sharing a few of them with the Running Mums Australia group. Even though I wasn't a mum, I just had this connection with them. And so then I started putting them up, and it just became a bit of a thing I did. I was going to write a reflection anyway, so I might as well tidy it up a bit and put it up there. And the website over time has become something more that you can offer your partners and as like your sponsors. And I actually haven't written anything for a while though. I didn't write one after Tokyo. Things have been a bit busy, so I hope I get back to doing some.
I did notice
writing.
that.
Refreshing every day.
I put a few things in notes in my phone and never actually wrote it up formally. But I will try to continue that when I can, because I think it's a really nice process to go through yourself and just to consolidate all of your learnings. And if others can learn something from it too, that's great. Well, thank you very much for doing it. It's so generous to share it with everyone, your experiences, but we love it.
Thank you for that. And then also thank you for jumping on with us today, and just for being such an amazing role model to every runner out there. Like, I hope you know how much everyone looks up to you and admires you, like the way that you run, your attitude towards life. You're amazing.
Straight back at you. I love what you two do for running. It's been really cool following along, and so thank you.
All right, I think that's it.
That's it for today's episode. We hope you loved the interview. Please let us know your thoughts.
And thank you so much to Jess for coming on, giving us your time and sharing your wisdom with not just us, but all the listeners of the pod. Listeners, if you're not already following Jess on Instagram, follow along, follow her journey, support her in any way you can.
Yeah, we'll link her socials and also her blog on the episode description so you can enjoy what we have been chatting about.
Thanks so much for listening, and we can't wait to be in your ears next week.
Woo! My dad wants to say hi.